The Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was confronted by an outraged local in Toronto over the ongoing housing affordability crisis, and the video of this interaction has gone absolutely viral on social media. This angry man can be heard roasting the Canadian Prime Minister right to his face over a slew of claims portraying him as an absolutely venal politician. Before we open up this conversation, let's in fact listen in to the exchange of words between the two.
Bro, look at his buck teeth.
Hi. Pleasure to see you as well. Hey there, how you
I'm not
doing?
shaking your hand, bro. You're a man.
Why is that, sir?
The entire country. You got our buddy
sir.
over there.
Yeah, but how did I mess up this country?
Can anybody afford a home in this day? You're charging
Kind of.
people carbon tax. You
Yes.
got 9
you know what we're
V8s
doing?
here idling
You know what we're
for
doing?
30
Carbon
minutes.
tax?
You're carbon freezing. We're getting charged for what?
You know what we're doing?
It's
with
not
the carbon
stopping,
tax?
no
We're
car-
putting a price on pollution,
Right.
and we're returning it to families like
I don't
yours.
think so. You're
We
sending
are.
it over
That's
to
a
Ukraine,
car-
right?
No.
Yeah.
Carbon and-
You send it over to the guy that you were with that
Oh,
slaughtered his own country.
You've been listening to Putin, have you?
Putin?
You gotta get
No.
off
But
of that
definitely
Russian
don't listen
disinformation,
to your propaganda, eh? You got propaganda, bro.
Everybody knows how to do waves, he knows how to do smiles. He doesn't
Out of here.
know
Go
what
to a homeless shelter.
All right, joining us to talk more about this on the program is Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat, also with us on the program, Sumit Peer, Senior Political Commentator, joins us on the show, and last but not the least, Pathikrit Pine, International Affairs Expert, Political Analyst, and of course a thinker, joins us on the conversation as well. Professor Nalapat, I'll begin with you. Well, it seems to me that, it's not only India that is peeved with Justin Trudeau, it's also his own people who think that, he's wasting a lot of money when he flies across in a private jet to attend this and that meeting. They're also peeved with him because of his, unjustified support for Ukraine and Zelensky. And we all know what happened in the parliament when they facilitated a Nazi German who fought for the Nazis against Russia in 1943. What is going on over here? And if you had the elections today in Canada, sir, was there a chance that Justin Trudeau would win the way he won when he became the Prime Minister?
Well, certainly when the election takes place in 2025, very few people are expecting Justin Trudeau to win. And so far as Zelensky is concerned, Trudeau thought that Zelensky coming to Canada will make a big impact on the people of Canada. The fact is that the Canadian people know that what Zelensky is coming there for is for money and for arms and ammunition, lots of it, and if possible Canadian soldiers going to Ukraine to fight the Russians. They're not in favor of any of that. And unfortunately what has happened is, as a consequence of this war in Ukraine, there has been a massive spike in inflation across the world. And that has also been the case in Canada. So people's incomes have not risen, but prices have risen, and naturally they're angry. Now, basically, what Trudeau is doing is grandstanding, as usual. He's just basically, he used Zelensky to try and improve his popularity, whereas Zelensky coming there and demanding more money, more of everything, just reminded Canadians of how much they've already spent on Ukraine. And what have they spent? And it's all literally gone up in smoke. And as that individual, correctly said, the country is being ruined. So I think there's no question that the rise in the cost of living, the fact that housing has become unaffordable, the fact that so many social services are breaking down, the fact that law and order is breaking down, all this shows that Trudeau may be very good at grandstanding and may be very good at coming up with imaginary conspiracies, but he's absolutely, a failure so far as managing the Canadian economy for the benefit of the Canadian people is concerned.
Ambassador Goel, what do you make of this? There's a housing crisis which is going on in Canada. Of course, apart from the crisis that he's had to deal with when it comes to India, there is a lot of anger against him for, the kind of inflation that has been seen in Canada, the kind of crime that has risen in Canada. How do you think Justin Trudeau is likely to navigate, this hostile environment if he wants to save his political career?
Vinith, you are absolutely right. There are lots of factors in Canada which are causing difficulties for Trudeau. Economic is one part of it. The social fragmentation is another part of it. Clearly, he's waning political popularity, which is forcing him to make certain choices which are not welcome to us. But the fact is that, really speaking, what is happening in Canada, given the kind of global conditions which are permeating in that area of the globe, Trudeau will need to make certain very difficult economic choices. As Professor Nalpat says, he brought in the factor of Ukraine, the support to Ukraine. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, Trudeau is not alone. Canada is not alone. It is basically the Europe and NATO which are coming together in terms of decision making on Zelensky, and major influence in this is really coming from the USA. They are actually determining, they are guiding, they are influencing, or they are driving the decision making in Ukraine. Therefore, I doubt very much if Trudeau will be able to make any changes there in terms of the economy, in terms of the housing, in terms of the revenues for the Canadians, the economy. It's again a very difficult call really. The energy has become more expensive. Energy, USA itself, which is in the market to really export more energy to Europe. So Canada has to find a market for its own energy. Canada is practically at the end of the world without any options to itself. So while having no sympathy, because Trudeau really acted like a fool in the parliament, but Trudeau does have many difficult choices to make really. And that is where he is at the moment. I do not know what call he will make, but very difficult for him. Yes.
So with Peer, in fact, Jagmeet Singh, somebody who supported the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, very, very, very dearly in the past few years, has also lashed out against him. Canada is the second largest country in the world when it comes to size. But when you talk about the population, it's very sparsely populated. It's just 4 people per kilometer. That also goes on to show and say that there is a lot of room for building houses, but yet, the government at this point in time doesn't have the will to make sure that every Canadian gets a house. Is it ironic that Justin Trudeau is putting his, energy and his acumen into a diplomatic standoff with India, whereas he should be focusing on how to make the next Canadian feel better about himself?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. Jastinder Singh Trudeau, that is his real name, is a tale of misplaced priorities. He's a dynasty, he's his papa's baby, he's a chocolatey boy. He's a person who has failed in too many professions, and the best description of him was given by Vladimir Putin yesterday when he said he's an idiot and possibly a school dropout, and he does not have a knowledge about who is a Nazi and who is not. That is how you sum up this thing. And Hindi mein bolu to begani shadi mein Abdullah Diwana. That is how dangerous is dynastic politics, and these dynasts can be to a country. If you want to make a case study, how can a dynast destroy a country? Canada. How can a dynast destroy relation with India? Canada. And how can a dynast shoot himself in the foot? Justin Trudeau, again Canada. So, we need 90% of the country is not inhabited. Only 10% of the country is inhabited. You are getting immigrants from all over the world and promising them a livelihood. But the thing is, there are a lot of people who live in tents. There are a lot of people who live under those flyovers in tents. It gets very cold. Canadians are not able to afford a house. The repo rate has gone up by, that is the interest rate has gone up by 9/10. Inflation is all-time high since the existence of Canada. And with that, he has promised to build millions of houses. And what is his answers to that? Now I have reversed the GST on constructions. When this money will be saved and thousands and millions of houses will come up. If that is the IQ and acumen of a leader, I think, what happened to him on the streets was very natural. We are here, building millions of houses. We have given 35 million houses have been given and delivered by India. Wherein if you have 35 million houses in Canada, everybody will have a house. Now he has billions to send to Ukraine. And let me tell you, what is the GDP? 2 trillion. What is this PPP? Only 2.3 trillion. So you have to understand here, Vineet, why I'm bringing GDP and PPP, because GDP is 2 trillion, by PPP is only 2.3 trillion. That means the Canadians don't have a lot of purchasing power. What is our GDP? 3.8 trillion, by PPP or we have crossed 13 trillion. That means our money, our wealth has a lot of purchasing power. With this diminishing power, purchasing power, repo rates gone at 11%, GST collections down, and millions of people are homeless. You have money to spend to send to Ukraine and have a photo shoot with Zelensky. Now the people on the road will be angry because you have misplaced your priorities. Khalistanis have infiltrated into your government, Pakistan's ISI stooges, who are Canadian citizens by the way, have infiltrated all your government organizations. You are today lost. You are running like a headless chicken. You don't know what your priorities are. You get a Nazi into your parliament, salute him, facilitate him. Then you say, okay, the speaker was wrong. When a new speaker comes, you also wink. There's also somebody in India who winks like him. So दोनों में बहुत similarity है. So you wink, then you are celebrating, then you don't know who your speaker is, then you don't know who is a Nazi. And Vladimir Putin has described him the best. That is what president of a so-called G7 countries, his only feather in the cap is that he is the neighbor of America. His only feather in the cap is he is white. His only feather in the cap is he is the 51st state of United States of America, technically speaking. Minus that, it is a tale of misplaced priorities. And Jaswinder ji, when you have 90% of your area empty, why don't you make a Khalistan in Canada? Yaar, itni jagah hai. Give half of the Canada as Khalistan. Make your friend Jagmeet Singh as the president there or a prime minister there. Why are you demanding Khalistan here? You have 90% of empty space. You are a country who has lost it. You are a country who don't deserve to be there. You are a person who is the last person who should be standing on that chair, except being your papa's boy, and failed in everything what you have done. And unfortunately, you again failed in politics. But when dynasts fail in politics, countries and populations and civilizations can have a big price to pay. This is the biggest learning what we should learn from Justin Trudeau. And for all the dynasts, Vanshavad se bada zahar, democracy ke liye aur koi nahi. That's what the Honorable Prime Minister says, and he is absolutely right. You see what Vanshavad can do to a country. Let's learn from this Jaswinder Singh Trudeau and leave him to his fate. There's a saying, Vineet, as somebody told me, leave an idiot with a rope in a room and lock the room. Rope and idiot will settle themselves. That is what Jaswinder Singh Trudeau is all about.
All right, Pathikrit, your views on this. Of course, when it comes to the housing crisis in Canada, Canada is going to be falling short of 35 lakh houses by the year 2030. And Justin Trudeau, in his normal and very usual and casual rant, went on to say in the Parliament that the influx of students from across the world was to be blamed from that. Let's not forget that's also a source of income for the Canadians. And out of this 5 lakh students, 9 lakh students, I beg your pardon, who go every year to Canada to study, around 2.23 are from India.
Vineet, I start with an example. From the time the US war on terror started and they invaded Afghanistan, Canada has sent 40,000 of its own soldiers over a period of 1 decade to fight in Afghanistan. The same country which sent 40,000 soldiers over a decade to fight America's war on terror did not give justice to its own citizens who were killed in the Kanishka bombing. Now, if you have a situation like this, what else do you expect? But the problem is, the West invented and created the social media. Today, social media has become their biggest nemesis because a lot of this web of lies they have, woven over a period of decades and pushed it, the narrative to the media, controlled media, that they are the saviors of the world, that what they do is the best thing that could have happened, that when they kill people, it is for a just cause and it is rational, but others, if they do, then it's a genocide. Those things are crumbling down. Let me tell you, this whole issue of influx that is happening in Canada, it has very little to do with students who are coming because the students come with a legal visa. The students study, many of them go back, some stay back. The most important reason for the crisis in Canada is not the students, but with a huge number of, or rather millions of illegal immigrants who have been allowed to come in the name of liberalism by Trudeau, following the footsteps of his, literally his superior master across the border, which is Joe Biden. So you have large number of Syrians, Afghans, Pakistanis, and from many other Arab states just coming in. You come in and you are garlanded and given a passport literally, or a permanent resident status. Now you have a situation in Canada that a country which is very big per se, but the habitable part is very small. So there is a huge constraint in terms of the availability of land for construction. That is creating a problem. So their tendency to play the holier than thou and that they are the Santa Claus of the world is creating problem for their own citizens. And the same thing, Vineet, is not just restricted to Canada. Many of the Western European countries who champion the cause of fighting against Russia, helping Ukraine, are facing same problems. One is this influx of immigrants issue, which we saw what happened in France. Canada is going to see maybe an implosion of terrorism in the near future, or radicalism, because in the name of liberal approach, you can do anything in Canada. Second thing, please understand, the problem of energy that Canada has is also because of their own doing. Russia's energy supply to Europe was completely dismantled. They tried so. And then United States had to supply a lot of natural gas to Europe. And in return, Canada is supplying its own natural gas to United States. And the Canadians are not getting the natural gas for the central heating of their own country's housing. That is creating problem. So Trudeau is more interested to cater to the American market, because otherwise, Joe Biden might face problem. Third, he has imposed a carbon tax at a time when there are so many problems, because they are champions of climate change. They talk about climate change while spending millions of dollars every time they fly abroad, fly across. But they are, they have to show that they're the champions. So carbon tax, shortage of natural gas, influx of illegal immigrants, creating a mess of relationship with India, which is one of the largest markets in the world. Trudeau is a test case of what is going to happen to Western Europe and what is going to happen to global North because of one word, wokeism. Today what has happened is that, the entire mission that NewsX started in terms of making people aware of what Kanishka bombing was. Vineet, I can tell you, millions of people in Canada were not even aware of what Kanishka bombing was. Thanks to NewsX that they became aware. Similarly, on the reality of Ukraine war, on the issue of how the Nazis, Azov battalion became an Azov brigade and an Azov regiment that is filled with all kinds of Nazis in Ukraine. They're coming to terms with the reality of what that war is and what NATO has done and what Russia is doing. And that's why there is a lot of support, popularity of our external affairs minister, or the stand taken by government of India and Prime Minister Modi on the whole issue of Russian-Ukraine war, that we have stayed away from it, stayed neutral. The Canadian president, even if whether he likes it or not, even if he doesn't like, I don't think so, he doesn't like, he loves to do what the Americans tell them to do or the NATO tells him to do. None of them have the conviction to tell that this is wrong. Germany is suffering badly because of 10 times increase in the price of energy. Still, the German government cannot say that the Nord Stream pipeline which was sabotaged, and we all know who sabotaged it, should not have been done. This is the predicament of the West today. Canada doesn't have enough of manufacturing. Canada is losing its markets. Canada has an immigration issue. Canada has a climate change carbon tax issue. Canada has a problem with the marketing of its own energy. And Canada is importing a lot of fuel, oil primarily, at a very expensive rate because of the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia.
Okay.
So look at the mess that you see in Canada is the creation of the whole cabal of which Trudeau is a part. Of course, he's going to face the music, but the bigger question we know, when the next government comes in, even if it's the opposition, will they be able to take a stand against NATO and change the whole policy? I doubt that.
Right. Professor Nalapat, Trudeau, in fact, he has been at the helm since 2015. When he took over Canada, they had a flourishing economy. I remember Stephen Harper, the former Prime Minister, when he gave the mantle to Justin Trudeau, Canada was doing much better. But today, Canadians are struggling under high inflation. The interest rates are going haywire. There are lack of jobs due to a slowdown in the economy. What's the way out over here? Do you think that the bonhomie that we have seen between Canada and China is likely to deepen as China loves countries in crisis?
Well, Vineet, I'd like to point out that the government of India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, basically has downsized the Canadian missions here. And one of the problems that is there, according to my friends in Canada, by the way, and very few of them are supporters of Trudeau. They were supporters of Trudeau, almost all of them. now most of them have turned against Trudeau. They say that basically the people who are, going, the visa officers, they are basically testing individuals from a particular state in India to find out if that individual speaks in a language which is opposed to the Indian state, which is even, even better from their point of view, basically in favor of breaking up the Indian state. So you have a democratic country, a country which should be a natural partner of India, and you have visa officers. Essentially, there are people who are going around and basically telling individuals that when questions are asked of you, this is the reply you should give. And the reply is against the Indian state, against the integrity of the Indian state, and make up imaginary stories of persecution and prosecution. So this is the situation, and thank God that such visa officers are now being sent to, I feel sorry for the Malaysians and the Indonesians, frankly, or the Singaporeans, to have such officers in their midst. It is really shocking that the diplomatic service of Canada, it should be misutilized in this manner to ensure that individuals come to Canada, and these individuals have been told that unless you behave in a way which shows that you are against the integrity of India, that you are against India, and especially that you are against the majority community in India, well, you won't be welcome in Canada. But if you do show that, then, as correctly said by Pratikrit, even if you come through dubious means, you're given employment. And you're given employment, and after some time, you're on the track to citizenship. This unfortunate gentleman who passed away, Mr. Nijjar, he was completely illegal. And he was illegal, and he committed multiple illegalities. But this is the kind of individual whom Justin Trudeau wants as his vote bank, or rather one of his partners wants as his vote bank. When you have a country whose leader is essentially inciting individuals to come and by basically pretending that they hate the country of their birth, and they hate the people of the country of their birth. It is a very, very dangerous situation for NATO, for the G7, for the G20. So frankly, I think Trudeau and his people have a lot to answer for. And I would like to say, I'm glad this gentleman, I'm sorry about his language, but I'm glad he acted the way he did. And I would like to say, Canadian diplomats, Canadian officials, they should not basically go by the political desires of Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau. Jagmeet Singh, we all know, there are two embassies that he is very, very close to. One High Commission and one embassy. Neither of them are friends of Canada. And you have this kind of a person in the inner councils of your government. So this is the problem with Justin Trudeau. He is living in a world where, frankly, he is completely unable to understand what Canada needs to do to be a responsible stakeholder in the global order. He's talking of the rule of law in defending outlaws. And from that point of view, I'd like to say, Vineet, I'm quite certain the Canadian people will throw him out, but they may have to wait until 2025, because it's very unlikely Justin Trudeau will want an election before the last minute of his legal term in office in Canada.
Absolutely. We've run out of time. Quick closing comments from our guests, starting with Ambassador Goel.
All said and done, given the situation in Canada, they face difficulties, but I don't think they are the kind of difficulties which are going to pull Canada down tremendously. They faced a housing problem before, but the housing problem is nothing again which cannot be overcome, because most of the Canadian economy is not government determined. It is private economy, it is the capitalist economy, and the people, even if the industry is not the mainstay, energy industry is still very, very important. Construction infrastructure is very important there. So therefore, I have no doubt whatsoever that Canada will be able to pull out, because there is right kind of leadership. The issue really is, what do we want from Canada, and what does Canada want from there? Unfortunately, at this time, there is no common meeting ground between the two of us, and therefore, whoever comes if there is a reasonable leadership next year in the elections, we can hope to overcome these difficulties and repeat the relationship. Otherwise, we are in for very, very difficult times.
All right. Sumit, quickly, please. Sumit, please.
Two and three quick points, Vinny. The first and the most important point is India has shown its diplomatic power and stature. We have cut Canada to size, irrespective it's a G7 country, irrespective it's a Western country, irrespective it's a ally of United States of America, and irrespective there's a Caucasian white man, at the helm of affairs. That's the point number one. Point number two is Indian students are giving you billions of dollars of revenue. It's because of that you are able to give subsidized education to your Canadian students. Don't forget that. Point number three, Vinny, there is one guy called this Imam of Peace. He once said one thing very good. He said none of the Muslim countries are taking any refugees in any of these nefarious elements because they are the shit and rot of the Islamic world. We don't want to take them. So if anybody wants to take them home and keep them in their drawing rooms, the shit only stinks. That is what these illegal immigrants and all are doing. They are going to suck Canada dry. They are going to suck them high and dry. All their resources will run out. That is why he is not able to build 35 lakh houses, maybe 1 million houses, when we have completed 35 million houses. Why he is not able to build 1 million when we have delivered more than 35 million? That is the question we should ask for. So-called Western powerful G7 country ruled by a dynasty who is as good as Imran Khan, because both of these chocolatey boys were supposed to use their charm to get votes and to have international relations using their good looks. I mean, come on, man. The world has moved on.
Pathikrit, quickly, please.
We need many of the Western G7 countries or the global North might face or are facing very similar situation what the Canadian government or the country is facing. Unless they completely recalibrate their approach towards the Russia-Ukraine crisis, what has started today in terms of another West Asia or Middle East crisis, if it also takes the shape of what the Ukraine-Russia war conflict has taken, commodity prices are going to go up even more profound. West would have a real problem unless they go for complete recalibration of their entire approach towards the world. Or else we might see many Canada-like situation in the other countries of Western Europe, which is already officially in a recession bound. Vinny.
All right. Thank you for your thoughts and thank you for those perspectives.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.